everyone, and thanks for joining me. My name is Rich Thompson. I am technical support for Cimatron, and for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about NC Setup, what it does and what you can do with it. And we'll set something up so you can see how it all works. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation, and anything we do not get to during that time, we'll certainly give you a call and answer any questions you have after the live session. So let's get started. About 4 years ago, I was working as an NC programmer, and a new version of Cimatron came out. I started a new NC file, and I noticed there was already something in my NC process manager. It had stock, which I used, but it also had part, which I never used. It wouldn't let me make a new procedure, and it seemed useless and in my way. So I did what many users do. I disabled it, and went back to programming the way I used to. If I knew then what I know now, I would have never disabled it, but I didn't have time to figure out what it could do. So let's talk about it. What are the benefits to using NC Setup? Saves repeated mouse clicks, safer machining using SafeMill, faster simulation setup, faster post setup, and the reduced chance of human error. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to launch a new NC file, and right away you'll see in the NC Process Manager that I have a few things here. First is this NC Setup, and then in the NC Setup you have target part and stock. This is just a template, and it's automatically loaded because the preference is turned on. That preference can be found in General, General NC, and by checking this box will allow you to bring in a template. So this is the default template, and in the default template it has NC Setup with a part and a stock. Let's take a look at what is in the NC Setup. So we have name, material, machine type, adapter type, post processor, and NC report. That's the top section. The name is just where you give your NC Setup its name, and this can be useful when you have multiple NC setups, especially when applying it as a template, and we'll show that later.
So we're just going to give this NC Setup a name, and I am going to hit the green check, and it does change the name here, but I just really wanted to hit the green check just to be able to load in a model since we don't have anything on the screen. And we'll just load this in. Okay, now we have a model on the screen. Let's go back into the NC Setup now and take a look at the material. So in the material window, you'll find just the material list, what you have made. There are materials that come with the install, and you can add and remove those. If you right click here, you'll see that insert or delete are not available. To add or remove materials from the list, you need to go into the material library, and that is in Tools, Edit Material Library. Here you can right click and you're able to insert or delete. I'm just going to add one, P20, and if you want to, you can give it a hardness 38 or just write something in if you have stuff before or after heat treat. Hit the green check, and now that's added to your material list. If you want to delete it, just right click, delete the row, and apply it. Okay, I'm just going to close out of this window. And I am going to give it a material. I'm going to go with H13. The reason why I'm even doing a material, why would you want to pick a material? What does it really do? Well, inside the cutter library, and you go over to the machining tab, you'll see this materials button. Right now it's grayed out. It doesn't have any materials assigned to this cutter, but you can assign materials to cutters and then have that cutter cut differently, whether it's cutting H13 or S7 or graphite. Then you don't have multiple cutter libraries, but you just have more just cutters, and then they cut different materials. So I'm actually going to load in a couple cutters that I have. I'm just going to delete this one. So now you can see that this materials button is now green. If we go into that, you can see that I have assigned some materials to this 250 ball, graphite H13 and S7. Those were in my list. But per material, I gave it some speeds and feeds that were different from each other, and some down steps and side steps as well. You can also turn coolant on if you'd like, but that's really big, because if you're cutting something and you load in the wrong material, or you have the wrong down step because you think that you're cutting a different material, or if you're just cutting something and you're in a rush and you have to go back to change the speeds and feeds, you can just update your material in your NC setup and update your tools, and you know the speeds and feeds are correct, and you don't have to manually type in those numbers. Okay, and I'm going to close out of the cutters and holders. I'm going to go back into the NC setup and take a look at machine. This machining simulation window, this is used for when you go into the simulator, and these are the default settings that are going to be used. So if you want to set your tolerance, your part offset, what machine you're going to use, the offset of the part on the machine, all that can be set here. And when you go into the machine simulator, if you're in and out, you don't have to worry about typing in the numbers or selecting the machine sim. It'll all be there ready for you when you go into the machine simulator. I'm actually going to use an offset here just to get the block up off the table. And I'm going to be using the rotor simulator. Okay, the adapter type, I'm just going to pull up some pictures to show you what these are. The BT30, BT50, CAT40, the DIN. You can add more or delete these too. I'm not going to use one for this, but this is just a picture of what they are. Okay, the post processor was already filled out because I had a machine sim, so it's going to grab the same post processor. But we're going to just open this up and take a look at it. If you have a lot of post processors, this is nice to have as your default. That way you don't have to dig through and pull up which one you want through this big list. You can also set the destination folder of where you want your posted files to go. I'm just going to leave that alone. Display G-code, I like to turn that on. And keep simulation data. This is going to speed up the next time you open up the simulator. The simulator always takes a little while to open up for the first time. But if you keep this box checked, if you have to go in the simulator again, it's going to open up faster for you after the first time. This reference UCS, I'm going to leave this set to manual. If you do want to change that, you can do that right here and select the UCS that you want to use. But I like to use manual just so that I know what I'm posting from each time, especially doing a 3+2 setup. You'll want to leave that on manual. NC report, this is pretty straightforward too. Your output format, I like the Excel, and your destination folder where they're going to be stored. Max spin, max feed. You can set these settings to what your max machine feed or spindle speed are. And if you make a procedure that exceeds those settings, it'll give you a warning message and letting you know that you exceeded the maximum feed or spindle speed for that machine. Your part, fixture, and other offset, this is the master control. So this will take priority unless it's otherwise specified in each procedure. Okay, and that's everything that's filled out there. I didn't show this, the machine table. Since I am using a machine sim, we can just turn this light bulb on, and it's going to give you a little preview of what the machine table is going to look like and what your block's going to look like setting on the machine. So that's useful if you want to move it in the X, Y, or need a little more in the Z. You can quickly have a nice little reference there showing what it's going to do. All right, well, I am going to close this NC setup, and let's see what it can do with these settings that we have in place now. Okay, and I'm going to show some safe milling now. I'm going to load in a fixture. And that looks good for right now. And I'm just going to put these on their own set. So you can either jump over to CAD mode or you can do it right inside NC. I'm going to throw my part on its own target part. Attach. And I'm going to put this fixture on the fixture vise. So now those are on their own set. And the target part, I'm just going to put that on its set here. We'll clear this and just go by criteria. Choose the target part. And right now we're just going to add a fixture, another part, and we're going to call this fixture. And we're going to add the vise. Okay, now we have the vise and the part on its own set. Okay, and then we're also going to use stock. Clear that as well. Oops, right here, clear that and do by criteria. And we're just going to use the target part. Now here, if you want to, you can add some more to the Z, X or Y. I'm just going to leave this alone for right now. Now that we have our part, fixture, and stock assigned, and in the NC setup, we can use safe mill. So I'm going to just go back into the NC setup, and I'm going to give this fixture a 50 thou offset since we're using one. And we're going to add a new toolpath. And that's fine. And we're going to make a procedure. And now that we have our procedure brought up, I'm going to change the cutter here because I'm going to start with the 1/2 inch bullnose. And you can see that the speeds and feeds were brought in, and these settings are coming from the material. So because we have part in the NC setup, we're able to use safe mill. You have to have part under your NC setup to be able to use safe mill. If it's under your toolpath, safe mill does not work. So now I'm not going to pick any surfaces or contours because that's all set in our NC setup. I'm going to just give a little offset here because we're going to rough this out first, and I'm just going to say 10 thou and close. And we will make another procedure with the ball. And this one we will set the 250 ball. And that's using the same settings. I just threw some big numbers in here just so it'll crunch fast. And we're going to just set this to 0. Now because this procedure cuts surfaces, we got to pick some surfaces. And we're going to also use criteria for this. And I'm going to choose the set target part. Green check, middle mouse, and close. And we're just going to crunch both of these real quick. And that's finished crunching, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to take a look at the roughing procedure first. You can see it roughed it down, no part surfaces picked, using safe mill. Avoided the fixture and roughed to within +10. Now on the finish mill path, I did not pick any contours purposely because I just wanted to show again what safe mill does. So let's put the cutter right here, and you can see it's avoiding the fixture, and it's going to just get close to it, whatever the tolerance of your offset is and your fixture offset, and this is just avoiding the holder. All right, we'll close that down. Now that this is all done, if we were to post it out and get it ready to run at the machine, we later find out that this really is an H13 and we need to adjust our down steps. Well, we can simply go into the NC setup, choose a different material, and if you double click on the procedure itself, open it up, come down anywhere in this field, right click, and set all the parameters from cutter params. Now it's going to adjust the speeds and feeds right to that new material. You can just save and close those. You can do the same thing here. And that's all updated. So now you don't have to worry about fat fingering a number or pulling in a whole new cutter library and reselecting cutters again. And finally, saving this as a template. Now because I don't know what machine I'm going to be running at, and I have multiple machines, I'm going to set this one as the rotors, because that's what we used. And I'm going to just copy this, and I'm going to put it down here and set this new machine as the Herco. And while I'm in here, I'm also going to clear the machine out and change the post processor to a Herco post processor. And we're just going to change this to 0 because on the Herco, we're just not going to have a machine height on there. Hit OK. So now we have two NC setups, one rotors and one Herco, and we're just going to select all of these, right click, and simply save a template. We're going to save a multi-toolpath template, startup, and save that. Okay, now that we've saved that as a template, we're going to close out of the file. All right, we're going to start a new NC file. And we're going to load in our part again. And we're also going to load in our vise. We're going to put those on their sets. Some people work with colors, and some people have all their colors are always different every time. So this is a good way to make sure that you can just use sets and cut with criteria, is just to have them labeled as fixture or as target part. So now that we have those on its set, we're going to jump back to our NC side here, and we are going to apply the template. You can either have this auto-loaded. In this case, I'm going to just pull it in manually. We have our Herco and our rotors, and if we were cutting with just the Herco, I would delete the rotors and execute. Because all of this is cut with criteria, there's no picking of faces, no picking of the part, the fixture. That's all done and saved as a template. And there you go. You have a block with a cutter path on it within seconds. And that is what we wanted to show with NC Setup. So at this time, we can take any questions that you might have.